Welcome back to Relationships at Work, your guide to building workplace connections and avoiding leadership blind spots. I'm your host, Russell Lolliker, a communications and leadership expert with a couple of decades of experience in both of those areas and a whole heap of curiosity, much like yourself, on how we can make the workplace better. If you're a leader trying to understand and improve your impact on work culture and the employee experience, well, you found yourself in the right place. Welcome to our latest mini episode of the show. Just a quick and valuable bit of information to get you ready for the week ahead. I'm trying to stay focused today. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I have Baby Shark in my head, so I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to entertain it in my brain any more than it already is, but I'm here to stay focused. I'm here to focus on the cure for arrogant assumption. This is something we talked about before we celebrated our 200th episode and some of the insights around that. Today we're talking about finding our moral imagination. So to get you up to speed, a couple of mini episodes ago, right before that 200th episode of Celebration, I talked about arrogant assumptions and how they might show up at work, even if unintended, like not taking in input or feedback, interrupting others, assuming some sort of understanding. All examples of arrogance that we need to really work to avoid. And I don't think anybody is completely detached from doing this. Everybody does this, especially when they've been in jobs for a really long period of time and they build up that confidence that comes with experience. So I want to talk about the cure to that. This is all inspired, by the way, from my reading Jacqueline Novogratz's fantastic book called Manifesto for a Moral Revolution. Practices to build a better world. If you haven't picked it up yet, I would really recommend you do. So what is the antidote to arrogant assumption? What's the other side of that? Well, besides taking some time to improve our own self-awareness, which I think everybody needs to start with whenever they're on a leadership journey, it's vital that we learn about this thing called moral imagination. The term originally was coined to define or contrast ethical discussions. One of my favorite succinct definitions for moral imagination is as creatively imagining the full range of options while making moral decisions. That's probably the most succinct definition. But for the workplace and in those relationships, those work relationships, Jacqueline Novogratz defines moral imagination as the ability to envision and work towards a future that is both better and just, taking into account the perspectives and experiences of others, particularly those who are marginalized or less powerful. It requires seeing the humanity in everyone, understanding the broader context of issues, and being willing to challenge existing systems and norms. I love that. I love that so very, very much. This is the answer to leadership's arrogant assumption. It's the ethical equivalent of walking a mile in someone else's shoes. And really understanding that those shoes come in so many different styles and sizes, and some people can't even afford shoes. I'm really digging into the metaphor here, but you get my point. I love the idea of morals being an understanding of community than rather just being a personal focus. It's moral within the organization, moral within our teams, within our branches, our departments. So how do we take these steps towards moral imagination? Well, I think the first thing we really need to do is embrace humility and curiosity. We have to start there. We recognize that you don't have all the answers, and we need to remain open to learning from others. This involves active listening. This involves asking questions, being willing to change your perspective based on new information and insights, really leaning into that humility and curiosity. Next, cultivate some empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of others, especially those who are different from you or in marginalized positions. It's about understanding their experiences, their challenges, their aspirations. This empathetic approach, it just helps in designing solutions that are more inclusive and effective. Another step I would recommend is building trust through authenticity. Not authority, authenticity. Being honest, being transparent, being consistent in our actions and decisions. I talk about trust a lot on this show. I can't stress how important it is. Building trust requires showing up as your true self, admitting mistakes, demonstrating a genuine commitment to the well-being of others, being vulnerable. Another thing we really need to do, and I find this happening less and less, we need to commit to long-term goals with courage. We too easily fall into traps of short-term thinking, band-aid fixes, not the bigger picture. We need to pursue ambitious, long-term objectives. It might not yield those immediate results that look great in a quarter or a performance review, but they have the potential to create real, lasting impact. Now, this requires courage. I'm not going to lie, it really does. In taking risks, facing uncertainty, not having all the answers, and persistence through some serious challenges that may be thrown your way, not only from your team, but other leadership. And last, to really get into this, we need to act with moral imagination, just like I described the definition off the top from Jacqueline Novogratz's book. So to do this, it's about using our creativity to envision new possibilities. Those possibilities that align with values, our values, the organizational values, and ethics. This involves thinking beyond the status quo, challenging existing paradigms. It is what it is should be your biggest red flag that things need to change. And imagining innovative solutions that can address systemic issues and creating a just and more equitable world. And that world is just your organization, just your team, but that's the sphere of influence. Even if we don't think we're arrogant, and I think if we step through all these steps, we can still be arrogant once in a while. We're human. It still happens. It's still essential that we don't assume that we don't make assumptions. Am I right? Maybe assume we are making assumptions. Maybe that's the path forward. And then taking steps to ensure we aren't. But knowing that we need to self-correct, we need guidelines, we need guardrails all the time. With a moral imagination, we'll be taking those steps to a more inclusive, healthy workplace that is more of a reality that people want than the one assumption creates. And that's a world I want to live in, and so do our teams. That's it. That's all. That is the cure for arrogant assumption. A little bit of moral imagination. That'll do it for another episode of Relationships at Work, your guide to building workplace connections and avoiding leadership blind spots. I'm Russell. Love spending time with you. Love that I was able to share that without slipping into Baby Shark. That moment is gone years ago, and yet for some reason on TikTok or Instagram, it showed up and just earwormed itself into my brain. I need to go lie down. You have a great day.